Good morning guys, and welcome back to Damo Drives, bringing real reviews to real people and answering some of those questions other channels might not talk about. The weather is lovely, we've just entered into spring. I've got a convertible, the roof is down, we've got gorgeous countryside around me. Life does not get any better than this. You might be considering getting a roadster or a convertible at the moment. But what are your options? Well, I'm not talking about spending thousands and thousands of pounds on something. You may have been flicking through Auto Trader. Oh God, that's showing my age, isn't it? Scrolling through Auto Trader with a budget of around, say, £10,000. And what can you get? Well, you'll definitely be looking at the MX-5, maybe going a bit old school with the MR2, even possibly a Porsche Boxster. Those are all very, very good cars. But what happens if you want something maybe slightly different? Well, this is the Bmw Z3. You don't see a huge amount of them on the road, even though they made 300,000 of these things. And this particular one is for sale, so the details are below about it, for just under £10,000. But what is the Z3 if you don't know about it? Is it fun? Is it something you should consider? Well, the BMW Z3 was the first mass-produced Z car and built outside of Germany. The Z1 was the first Z car, and that was made in the late 80s. Not for very long, mind you. It had mad sliding doors. It was a bit of a bonkers car. And BMW didn't expect it to sell well. And it did, and they couldn't keep up with demand, and it was quite expensive. So what they then did was they thought, right, we need to do something to jump into the roadster market, and they built and designed this, the BMW Z3, first out in 1995, finished production in 2002 and replaced by the Z4. The underpinnings of the car, unlike the Z1, which was ground up, this was based on the E46 3 Series. And what a great platform that is. Although there was a slight compromise that had to be made because it was based on the 318 Ti, so that is the compact version. At the rear with the suspension, we don't actually have the same suspensions found in the regular 3 Series. We've got trailing arm suspension found in the E30. So that is definitely older suspension back from the 80s, which, does that matter? Well, we'll find out over the course of the video. Does old suspension like that ruin the enjoyment of this car? Now, the marketing department at BMW pulled an absolute corker when it came to this car coming out. They managed to get the new Z3 into GoldenEye, the new James Bond film at the time, and you can imagine what that did for the order books. It went absolutely mental. Everyone wanted a Z3. Who didn't want to be James Bond in a Z car? Although this doesn't have the Stinger missiles as you would find in the film. So the sales went absolutely bonkers, which was good. Now, something a bit weird, and I'm not quite sure why they did this, that BMW are renowned for making straight 6 or inline 6 engines. It's what people buy them for. But the first Z3 didn't come with a straight 6. It wasn't even an option. It was a 1.8 or 1.9 16 valve and 8 valve engine. It wasn't until I think 97, which is when this car came out, that they started offering the proper smooth and silky straight 6. So a lot of people at the time, certainly in the media, the press, they said it was a bit underpowered, and I think they were a bit underwhelmed by the initial experience. You saw it in James Bond and it looked amazing, but it just didn't have that poke to go with it. But luckily they rectified it, and this model I have today is the 2.8 M52 engine It's not massively powerful, 189 brake horsepower, I think it's 275 Newton meters of torque, but it's not exactly the heaviest car. It's only 1,300 kilos, so it's got loads of low down grunt. 60, 7.1, again, it's not really that quick car. If you compare it to something today, Ford Fiesta ST is faster and more powerful, acceleration is more, but I think if you buy this, you're not really going to be as bothered by it. And to me, when this car first came out, I remember seeing it. In fact, my mum actually owned a 1.9 version of one of these, and I was in two minds. I was like, I'm not sure about that. I just didn't know quite what to think about it. But I think this thing has got better and better with age. I don't know whether that's because some of today's cars are so ugly and horrible to look at, and this, you realise, is a good looking car. It is most definitely a future classic. These things a few years ago, you could get a reasonable example for £2,000 or £3,000, but now, today, you're certainly looking at considerably more. And it's got character and personality, it's fun. It might not feel as direct and darty or sports car like as something like an MX-5. This feels more, I suppose, like a GT type of car. It's fast when you want it to be, but it's not outrageously fast. It's not slam you on the floor, uncomfortable, and yeah, it's just a different feel. We've got quite thick tyres on here, so it's quite smooth. It's, like I said, you can push it if you want to. And behind the wheel though, is that any good? I think if this was classified as a GT car, yes. The seats are comfy, everything's nicely laid out. We've got great visibility out the front. Small steering wheels, no buttons on here. The only thing is, unlike an MX-5 or a Porsche Boxster, where you feel like you're sitting low and hunkered down, the Z3 feels more like you're sort of sitting on the car, which is a bit of a shame in some ways. Not for everyone, because I know certain people, I know my wife would not like something like an MX-5. They're not very graceful to get out of because you are on the floor. This you can step into like a normal car, but it is lovely driving around in this beautiful, beautiful weather. It's got a pokey little engine. Well, it's not a little engine, is it? 2.8 litre inline six. And I am a very, very happy person indeed. The views are stunning. The weather is actually nice today. Although it was snowing yesterday at -1 when I woke up this morning. But the heaters are very good in here. Yeah. This, I could daily this quite happily. I'm sure many people daily MX-5s, but I think this as an all-rounder is probably a better proposition. And with that engine, it's a very, very good, enjoyable, fun and good looking car. I had to stop for a minute and show you around the outside of this Z3. We've done plenty of driving, but I think it's a really good looking car. Based on the E36 3 Series compact, you'd expect there to be quite a big car, lots of room, but it's really, really small. That's something I can't get over. The fact in the compact, there'd be another 2 seats back here, and there's a small boot, so how on earth they managed that, I don't know. This being the Mark 1 model does mean it's got the wide body kit on it. Because it is the 2.8, it means it's got flared wheel arches and it just looks a bit better from the back. Something they didn't do though was increase the size of the tyres, and they're quite small on here. They're only 225 50/16s on here. And I think the back with the flared wheel arches either could do with some spacers or, well, bigger wheels. But this is completely original how you'd find it from factory. It's had one lady owner, which is unbelievable. Finding a car with only 40,000 miles on it, it's got to be one of the lowest Z3s in the country. It's a beautiful, beautiful looking car. I just want to show you under the bonnet first, because it's quite interesting, the packaging under there. Now, I just wanted a quick look under here, because it's pretty impressive, the number of engines and configurations they've had under this car. So we've had everything from a 1.8 8 valve, the 1.9 16 valve, 2 litre, 2.2, 2.5, 2.8 as we found here, and then all the way up to the 3.2 found in the M series. There is loads and loads of room under here. The bonnet is huge, but the engine it's not really that big. We've got this huge cladding, so it looks like the engine goes back here, but take this off and the engine's like back here, and the radiator starts all the way back here. So there's a lot of bonnet around it. It just gives it that extra special feel. I love looking out the front of the car with that huge bonnet in front of it. It's just something a bit special. Going back, we remember the days of the small kidney grills. Where we are today, they're massive in comparison, but these are quite timeless. I just think it's a really, really good looking car. Now, something I haven't seen before on any Z3, but it is an optional extra, because, well, this car's got one, is the fact that the soft top would normally be folded into the back here and it looked a bit messy. This has actually got a cover that goes over it, and it really finishes it off nicely. Wind deflector as well, and that's very, very useful, because there wasn't actually that much buffeting inside the cabin when we were driving. The straight six engines have all got dual exhaust, as you'll see down there. This was an optional extra, this chrome bit round the key. Open that up, and there's actually a good amount of storage in there. You could fit probably a couple of overnight bags in there. I've got 4 camera bags in there quite easily, so it's still practical as well as having a bit of fun. So there we go, that's the outside. Let's hop back in and we'll carry on the driving. Now, when it comes to gadgets, you won't need to spend too much time learning how to use them, because, well, it doesn't have any. We don't have active cruise control. We don't even have cruise control. We don't have any of that automatic parking. We've got ABS and traction control. I think that's about it. Stereo wise, yes is the answer. We have one. You need to dust off your cassettes if you want to use them, because we do actually have a tape player. We've got blowers here. I don't think we've even got climate control. It's very, very basic. The important bits you have is a good sized steering wheel, a good feel throttle and brake, and a manual gear selector, and that is it. So very, very simple. Now let's go back to the suspension on this, being McPherson struts up front and old E30 suspension at the back. Does that make a big difference? Does it completely ruin the driving experience and driving the car? Well, these roads are very tight and twisty, so we'll push on up to a point and we'll see how the car gets on. I feel like I'm sitting right over the back axle of this car. We've got a long bonnet in front of us, and let's push on. We haven't got low profile tyres, so there's lots of give there, quite thick sidewalls on here, so you have got that extra cushioning. These roads normally are absolutely shocking when you come across in here. Anything that's slightly firm and sporty are bounced all over the road, but this Z3 is doing a really, really good job. I mean, I'm not even going anywhere near the speed limit, but it doesn't feel like you actually need to. We'll go around this, we'll drop it down to second. You can feel the back end sliding ever so slightly. Out the other side and you're off. So there was a bit of play in the back of the car. You could feel it moving around. Not that much, it felt very predictable. It wasn't as sharp and darty as some cars I've driven recently, but I don't think it needs to. It reminds me very much of the E39 M5. The fact that it had loads of performance and it's just a different feeling type of car. It's very enjoyable. Plenty of torque in this thing. It does move around, you can feel it. So you do need to keep your wits about you, but it doesn't, it feels very, very controlled. I mean, you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50. It just pulls really nicely. Nice linear delivery. Plenty of punch and you're off. So I think they've done a really good job with this. Does the E30 rear suspension make a massive difference on the public roads? I don't think it does that much. Yes, it does move around underneath you slightly, but it's controllable, it's predictable. You know exactly what it's going to be doing. It's not darty and pointy as maybe something like a Porsche Boxster or certainly the new Z4. It does feel slightly older, but it feels predictable. The E39 M5 I drove, yes, that's a different class above this, but it had the same sort of feeling. This is where we can push it. These are some nice switchback bends, and you can feel it sliding slightly. The fact we've got loads of torque means we don't need to be thrashing the thing around the corners. Don't need to change down a gear. You can just leave it in fourth and there's still plenty of pickup. So I think as a car, this is fantastic. It's so enjoyable to drive. It's not the fastest car in the world, no. It hasn't got loads of gadgets, but it's enjoyable. It looks fantastic. And like I said, definitely a future classic. These are going to become, I think, within a few years, very, very expensive to buy. This one, under 10 grand at the moment. But you could imagine in 3 or 4 years' time, that's going to be 16,000, 17,000 pounds. That's not car buying advice, that's just a stab in the dark. Damo's stab in the dark, making up some random facts. But they have rapidly gone up in price. So if you want one, I think this is a very good time to actually go out and get one. I've just really enjoyed the time with it, and whoever's going to buy this car next, I think it's going to be very, very happy indeed.